Hey, teacher friends, welcome back. Michelle here, and today's video is going to be different from my typical videos. And so it will not be my typical, I guess, strategy video that I like to give. In today's video, I'm going to be giving some insights into how to implement some of the strategies that I talk a lot about in my content. And so this video will not be heavily edited. So let me just say ahead of time, forgive me for the ahs and the ums that I do a lot of that you don't get to see all the time. And I'm just coming from my heart and from some of the experiences that I've had over the years about how to do this thing. And it's really a general response video to some of the questions and comments that I'm getting, whether it's through my email or on YouTube or the comments or whatever. So some of the questions I've been getting have been, how do I implement like things like choice time and how do I do these, how do I teach or give options or choices, because I don't have time in my schedule and I don't have this thing called choice time with the rewards and the consequences. I don't have these things. So how do I implement some of the things that you're talking about? So I'm just going to give you, kind of some tips on how to move forward with the strategies so that it just doesn't sit here on the video, but actually you can take it and move forward. So here's the first thing. The first thing I would say is you have to make a decision to do things differently. Because for the most part, I have found that there are many school systems and districts that don't think outside the box. They really stay in this formatted, systematic way of doing things. And a lot of times it's not effective for you in the classroom. And what I mean by that is the overall school plan is geared for everybody. And so they, and I get the need for that because they can't really be as specific for every student in every classroom, which is why I believe that every teacher needs a unique system for their classroom. But you have to make a decision, two decisions actually, that I'm going to do things different and that it's up to me. And I get this from teachers who say, well, what about the parents? And shouldn't the school system be doing this or my administration be doing that? And here's what I'll say about that. I don't believe in keeping parents out of the loop. I believe in including parents. But can I just say something? No hate to any parent out there who is doing a great job, but not all parents are successful at parenting. So you can let the parent handle it, or you can invite the parent to handle it, but you just don't know what you're going to get. It's like a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're going to get. Some of you will get the beautiful, milky, chocolatey with the peanuts and the almonds in it, the cluster mix, and some of you will come back with an empty box. So there is room for parents. So I'm not trying to take power away from parents or authority away from parents, but at the end of the day, that student is still in your classroom. So at some point you have to say, it's up to me. And I say that also with no hate at a school system or an administration, because they have bosses and they have limitations and boundaries just like teachers do. And some are really great and supportive and some are not. You know your school, so you know how it works. But what I'll say is that when it comes to your classroom, right, you have to close the door and you have to begin teaching. And you have to be productive and there has to be order. And so at the end of the day, it's up to you. So I would say, take on that mindset of, I have to do it differently and it's up to me. And so I remember as a teacher, when I started, my school had a behavior plan, they had a system, and it was effective to a point. But when it came to the day-to-day implementation of it, it didn't help me out a lot. I would call parents and let them know what's going on. Some parents would say, great, I'll take care of it. And the student would come back and the same behavior would happen. Some students came back, their behavior changed for a week or two. Then I had other parents who said, why are you calling me? What do you want me to do? Or I don't know what to do. So at the end of the day, yes, I let the parents know, but it didn't change things in my classroom. Then when it came to administration, once again, I've had very supportive administration. They've had different levels of support. They would take the student out, but guess what? The student's coming back. They would suspend the student, but guess what? The student's still coming back. So the question then becomes, what do you do, right? And so, so to answer this first question that I heard, well, I don't have time in my schedule for these things. Guess what? I didn't have time either. So if you're looking to find the time, then this is not going to work for you. I made the time. I carved out the time for the interventions, for the strategies that I'm talking about. So when we had classroom meetings, I didn't find time for classroom meetings. I made time for classroom meetings. And how can I say I made time? Because I had to preserve my peace. I had to promote order. Because here's a question that happens. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? Well, what comes first, compliance or education? Which one comes first? And so that's what you have to take into consideration. For me, my students had to be compliant. There had to be order before I could teach, or before I could teach the majority of my class. And so therefore I chose to bring order in before I could teach, but I didn't have all year. I didn't have, all month. So I had to really begin to look into strategies that work. So this is why I'm so passionate about this thing, because I've been where you are. I've done what you've done. I've made the mistakes. I've thrown things on the wall, so to speak, strategies. I'm like, let's try this out. It doesn't work. Let's try this out. This doesn't work. So these things that I'm talking about are classroom tested over multiple classrooms, over the many years that I've been in classrooms and in education. So I made the time. So I wanted, for example, when I started doing choice time, I wanted to do it 30 minutes. And my principal said, no, we don't have time for 30 minutes. You're supposed to do this, 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 and this. And I was able to negotiate, which is another tip or strategy. I was able to negotiate, okay, if you can't give me 30 minutes, can we break it up and you give me, and I was actually able to negotiate 7 minutes twice a day. Because what I was saying to her is I spend more time than that correcting behavior, waiting for misbehavior to end. And so if I'm going to see that to reduce, if I want to see change, then I need some time to reinforce the behaviors I want to see. And this is what I was choosing, choice time method. So I would say find the time and negotiate the need. The other thing you want to do is, someone was saying in one of the comments that, well, I don't have activities to do with my students. Well, guess what? I didn't either. When I started, I didn't have anything. So I had to say, okay, what's in my hand? What do I have? I happen to have, board games. I knew I had art supplies. I had to look up things. I had to create things. I looked at, okay, we have a computer, we have a music area, and I created things. And all of this actually that I'm talking about will be in my choice time method workshop that's coming out next month. But I didn't have things, I created things. I didn't have time, I made the time. And that's how I was able to be successful. And then I had to negotiate the strategies that I wanted to use, because first of all, these strategies were not widely being used, right? It was outside of the box, and there was pushback against it. But when I say negotiate, I was able to say, this is what's happening now, and this is my suggestion for an intervention to combat what's happening. And if you have a better idea, I'm all ears. And that's often when I got left alone, right? And so I would say negotiate for what you need and negotiate for your peace. And I was big on that, negotiating for my peace. And so I was not afraid to communicate to my administration what I needed. Did they say yes to everything I wanted to implement? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There are things I'm like, oh, I want to do this. They're like, no, you can't do that. There are things that I want to do this. No, you can't do that. But there were things that they allowed me to implement. And so that's what I did. And I was able to refine that process, refine those strategies. And that's how I was able to see success in my classroom. And then the last thing I would say is to trust the process. So when I started implementing these strategies, was I 100% sure they were going to work? No, I was not. I was hopeful that they would work, and I was willing to try things out to see if it would work. So when you see teachers who've been teaching, I call them double-digit teachers, right? The 10, 15, some of them 20 years. I met someone the other day, 37 years. You know, they've been doing this for a while, so the experience will help you. But if you're new, or if you've been placed in a different setting that has drastically changed from previous years, some of this will be trial and error. Some of this will be finding out what works for you and your personality and the culture that you're teaching in. And I'm not just talking race and ethnicity. That might be a thing as well, but actually how things are done, how things are thought about when I talk about culture. So, and there's different levels of that. But I had to say, okay, I'm going to do this for at least 10 days, 10 school days, regardless of what happens. So if my student decides to destroy the room, hey, I've had it happen. If I've had a student who decides to curse me out, had it happen. Unless the administration says I can't do it, I will try it for 10 days. And if you'll notice with a lot of my strategies, they're not heavily punitive, but what they do is that they shape the behavior through a combination of positive and proactive and discouraging interventions, which I call consequences. And so my key was to be consistent and not listen to what the student's saying. I don't care. It doesn't matter. That's not going to hurt me. You think I'm going to change because of that? That did nothing to change my action because that's their job, right? It's like I had a good thing going. This calling out all day, every day. It was a good thing. So you think if you do this, that it's going to change me? Of course they're going to say that because they're trying to dissuade you or distract you from what you're doing. But I learned that through consistency, me being the constant, that is what brought the most effective change when it came to implementing the consequences. So I leave you with this. If you're saying, I don't even know how to start, I don't even know how to implement, definitely take a look at some of my courses. They'll be in the link. They'll be in the link below because I can't go into too much detail. Also, something for you to consider is, I do consultations as well because I can't be too specific because a lot of this also depends on your administrator, your student, your environment, your grade level, your personality, all your comfortability level, your experience. All of these play a factor into everything. And let me just say one other thing about choice time, because I've heard, or even some of the interventions that I suggest, the strategies that I give out, some people say, well, this sounds like it's just for elementary. Absolutely not. Choice time for me started in middle school. And a lot of the strategies that I provide, they can work across the grade levels, but you have to adjust it based on where you are, what grade level, what age group, the environment of your classroom, and the culture of your school. But they are sound principles that work. You just have to adjust them, as I call it, repackage them for who you are serving and where you're serving, just to throw that out. So if you're looking for something really, really specific to your classroom, I can say, I do have consultations. I'll leave it in the link below that I believe are teacher priced, right? And then if you're a school, I also do consultations for school that are school priced. And definitely take a look at my workshops. Some of them are free, some of them are not. But at the end of the day, here are the key takeaways. For things to work, you're going to have to make the time, create the time. You're going to have to create the activities or develop the activities. Start with what's in your hand. So if you have a computer, if you have access to music, if you have, paper for arts and crafts, if someone's willing to donate something to you, start there. Also, you have to negotiate and communicate your need. Communicate, this is what I need for there to be order and structure, because if there's no order and structure, there will be no progress for my students. Negotiate, they may not give you everything, but they might give you something, and that's better than nothing. and then trust the process. So the process that you go through, in the beginning, it may look like nothing is working. But if you are consistent, you'll be surprised at the outcome that comes from implementing on a consistent basis. If you like videos like this, let me know. This is just me speaking from my heart. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to edit it. But I just wanted to address this to give some teachers some support and some insight to how things can work for you. All right, see you next time.